Hello and welcome back to Inquisitor Martyr. Last time we kept going with the Void Crusade, and we'll keep jumping into that. Yeah, that's doable. So we've had some interesting news as of late. If you don't follow a lot of competitive CoD, some of these, well, I mean, the name that's going to come up isn't going to make much sense, but Activision decided to hit Scump with a copyright claim midstream. Now, like I said, if you don't know the name, it just sounds nonsensical, like, who the hell is Scump? Scump played for Optic. He was one of the biggest names in professional CoD. And I believe he kind of retired from the pro scene at this point. I'm not 100% sure. But he and other people do CoD streams. And not like, oh, I'm just going to play some CoD and talk about stuff or do whatever, but more they do play-by-play. There's shows like The Flank, I think, and stuff like that. What it is essentially like Sports Center for CoD. These guys will sometimes watch, I believe they'll watch pro games live, or they'll go over them the next day, and they'll take clips and go over a round of search and destroy and say, okay, here's what this guy did. Did it work? Did it not work? What's there to learn from it? So on and so forth. Like I said, like Sports Center. They talk about the game, they talk about the current scene, all that stuff. And so it's very interesting to see Activision. They struck not only Scump live on stream, but they also have been going after other creators who've done these streams. And it's just the strangest thing to me. Because these guys are... What they do is relatively new. It's not the newest thing to come out of the CoD community, but compared to 5-10 years ago, this is definitely a new thing. The rise of podcasting really kind of gave such an idea legs. And it's just strange because it's a community thing. And alongside a lot of other people, a lot of big name YouTubers and CoD people have all kind of said the same thing of, what is Activision's play here? Because this comes off as very hostile to the community. And admittedly, nothing Activision does these days shocks me. Flat out, nothing is a surprise anymore. It's just like, oh yeah, they did something hostile to the community. Okay, it's a day that ends in Y. They always do something hostile to the community. But this just feels weird, because it gave more eyes to the pro scene, and it gave more community, because honestly, Call of Duty has it has a community, it has players, I guess even that, it has players, but it doesn't have much of a community. Because stuff like this goes away. Stuff like this is now getting punished. Before, you would have guys who could do this, and these things would be good. You had people who would do rate your play, where they'd be like, oh, send me a recording of your match of S&D, and you'd have pros or whomstever go over it and be like, oh hey, you did this wrong, you should have ran this route, so on and so forth. I'm Marksman. He does that, or did it long ago. But so it's just so strange. And I'm of the tinfoil hat community here, who believes it might be Activision trying to eliminate competition to then prop up their own version of this. Hiring on, who knows, maybe even try to get Scump, even though I think it would really be a dick move to just flat out be like, hey, we prevented you from doing this on your own so that we can try to hire you. Because it's like, at that point, you could have just asked. But I could see them doing it and being like, oh, well, we want to make our own blah, or some kind of paranoia along the lines of like, oh, well, people aren't watching the live streams or whatever of the Pro League, which I don't have the information. I can't verify definitively whether that's true or not. I imagine it isn't, because this stuff is usually a day or so usually a day or so after, if not a little longer, depending on when the tournament is. And so it shouldn't really affect them. Anybody who's watching it after the fact, I imagine, is a small number compared to live. It's just strange seeing Call of Duty do another thing to damage their community. It's strange seeing it with a lot of studios and games where they're very, very eager to just destroy all community goodwill that they've built up. Personally, I would be ecstatic to have a game where people are doing that kind of stuff. Because that's free advertising. Granted, I've also said in the past, and I'll go over it again, I think how COD League is established is god-awful. New information came out that these... So, we're going to start off by explaining how COD League works. Because you have franchises. And each franchise costs you... God, I think it's $25 million to get in. And you can win, I think, $1 million at Worlds. So these teams are already coming in with an absurd deficit. I mean, come on. Having to win 25 Worlds in a row just to finally break even? And that's if, in theory, your team is paid nothing. It is not a good setup. And I'll run around just while I'm talking about this, but what they really needed to do was emulate League of Legends. I know League has kind of shifted, I think, from ELO to like a new system for their ranked play, which I really have to read up on, because I played back when it was just ELO, which is what chess uses for like professionals and whatnot, and it's a fine ranking system. But what would happen in League is you'd have teams form, you'd do your queues, play through, you'd go to Platinum, and then you'd go to Challenger tier. Challenger tier was semi-pro, and every year you had like a playoffs where everyone, or preseason to get into playoffs, and you had to compete in a tournament or a few tournaments, and your rank decided your fate. If you were good enough, your team went pro for the year. You would get access to pro tournaments, and you could go to Worlds. If you failed, you would go into Challenger tier, and you'd still have like semi-pro tournaments. It's like farm leagues for hockey or baseball, where you have kind of this semi-pro team who does their own thing, but sometimes guys can get pulled up. Except, at least in League, you could always try next year. granted, some of those teams were pretty set in stone. Like, you pretty much always saw, like, Team Solo Mid. Cloud9 was very frequent on there. It's teams where they were usually stacked, or they had the same guys for 4, 5, 6 years, that they were good. But it gave some teams a chance. And it's such a better investment that way than trying to do this franchise play. Because a franchise, you don't have the community. When I see, TSM, I recognize that, and if I were a big fan, I knew a guy in college who was a big Dyrus fan. So he was a big TSM guy. But you could build up a fan base of that. You knew that team, you knew those players. You can watch them grow to be pros, or you can kind of stumble upon them. If the team is already established, yes, that's like American football. But it's not as interesting. I don't have any tie to the LA Silverfish, or whatever the team is. I just don't have it. Because they didn't earn their spot. You didn't see these guys get picked up. You didn't see this kind of origin story. Somebody just had $25 million that they tossed at a company and said, hey, give us a spot. And you see that a lot in esports right now, where guys are saying, hey, it's a losing process. You lose money every year. What was it? FaZe. Friggin' FaZe Clan. Ever since they went public and did their IPO, they have been just struggling to make something worth selling. Because it's just a bunch of gamers. And admittedly, part of that is turning clans into a corporate thing was kind of a doomed to fail prospect. Figured I'd hop out of there, otherwise I could just run around in that area for 20 minutes talking. Is that... Oh, that is discernibly worse. Okay, cool. Now we got space. But going with this CoD competitive thing, I think my biggest complaint, I'd say it's on par with the whole, like, you're destroying a community-run thing, which never destroy your community-run institutions. It's a terrible idea. The other thing is, with having these paid teams, it's, like, yes, they have to recruit people, but it's not as interesting as watching these communities form, watching clans appear and try to do competitive. And that's where it kind of falls on its face. Because everybody loves the idea of looking at, like, how many people have played, like, League and gone, hey, I can do that. I know guys who tried to go pro in League. Did they? No. And, I mean, they're doing fine. It's not like they just hedged all their bets and they're like, this is all I'm gonna do. Get rich or die trying, following 50 Cent's approach to life. But there's that feeling of I can do it too. And it's a lot harder when the teams are established, because then it's not, oh, I can just try out for clans or maybe get recruited by another clan. It's, oh, I have to hope FaZe or, what is it, the Huntsman or the Kraken or Rocker or any of these established teams picks me up. And if they don't pick me up, then I have a 0 chance of getting in. it kills me. I don't get what Activision is doing, but at the same time, tons of news has come out about, like, Sledgehammer getting just terrible deals when it comes to making games. There's rumors that Call of Duty Vanguard actually had only 8 months of development time, and then Modern Warfare 3... I mean, we knew it didn't have a ton of dev time because it was meant to be DLC. But so stuff like that comes out, and this is actually a relatively new thing. Tom Henderson leaked it, which, if the name doesn't mean much, don't worry. He's just he's a reputable leaker, which at this point I feel like it's less of leaker and more of just PR guy. Because my approach to leaks are, it's either controlled dissemination. I actually have to run to get to the VIP. But it's either controlled dissemination, you're saying, hey, we are going to let this information out at this time because it is okay to release it, or stuff comes out and that's not okay, and then you suddenly see it get DMCA'd. Tom's stuff doesn't get DMCA'd, and it's fairly accurate, so I consider that more controlled dissemination. And the stuff that he recently leaked is that we know the next Call of Duty is supposed to be like Call of Duty Gulf War. Not a big fan of the idea, simply because we're going from a modern game to a 30-year-old setting. But mostly it's because of the guns. If you want a look at, like, hey, what was used in Gulf War, look at, like, CoD 4. Because that came out, like, 2006? 2007? Something along those lines. The weapons then and the weapons in the 90s weren't that different. A few things might be... Some attachments might be available or not, but Call of Duty's never been real big on historical accuracy, so you're probably going to see attachments that didn't exist. But by and large, it's not going to be that different. But then the news came out that CoD 2025 is supposed to be a actual sequel to Black Ops 2, set in 2030. And I'm like, okay, this is okay, but who's making it? Because we know Treyarch is making 2024's game, so does that mean Sledgehammer's getting the next game? Because then they're just gonna get hit with another short window to work with, and we're gonna get this whole cycle all over again of, oh, you're charging $70 for a DLC, oh, it's not up to par, and it doesn't work out. There was also the fact that the 2025 game was supposed to have all Black Ops 2 maps remastered. But then after the pushback with Modern Warfare 3 just having Modern Warfare 2 maps and nothing original until Season 1, they've decided to spread out the remastered maps and sprinkle in existing maps, or like new ones that they're making. And it's just weird, because then if you have this second Black Ops game, it looks like they're following this new trend of like tentpole game, DLC support game, tentpole game, DLC support game. And it's very strange. I don't fully know how I feel about it. Some people are going, oh, it means the main games are going to get more development time, which they don't. It really isn't going to be much different, because someone has to work on these. I don't know where it's going to go. And it's stuff like that. I've seen people go, oh, well, Activision is going to be better now that Bobby Kotick's gone and that Microsoft's in charge. But if we use Bethesda as an example, Microsoft doesn't really care. Their whole thing is just, we want to outspend Sony, so we'll buy a bunch of stuff and just hope for the best. Because realistically, Xbox is propped up by Microsoft. They could lose on every front, and because of Windows and all that, Microsoft can just continually bankroll Xbox stuff to the ends of the earth. It's alarming. There's a lot of, from what we've seen, a lot of infighting and a lot of just people not happy within some of the Activision studios. I don't blame them. There's claims of just a distinct lack of creative choice in these games. You're just kind of told, you are making this, you will be doing X, Y, and Z. There's talk that the 2025 CoD is going to have the Pick 10 system, which absolutely shocked me. I thought the pick, if it comes true, I have to preface, if it comes true, I'd be shocked, because I thought the Pick 10 system is dead and gone because of the gunsmith system. But I could see it make a comeback, and I'm not entirely opposed to it. I think the Pick 10 system was the best Call of Duty could be because it allowed balance. Using unmodified weapons was a thing. You could reg a gun, as it's called, and you weren't screwed. Now, if you're not running 5 attachments at all times, you're putting yourself at a distinct disadvantage, and there's also just a lot of bloat. I've looked at the stuff in Modern Warfare 2/3. You know how many foregrips there are? How many sights? Modern Warfare 2019 had this issue with sights, where you're sitting there. I need to go get that chest. But you're just sitting there, and it's like, oh, do you want the foregrip that reduces horizontal recoil by 0.02, or do you want the one that reduces horizontal recoil by 0.021? And you're just looking at it going, why? Why is this a thing? I would just rather have the foregrip that does horizontal recoil, the foregrip that does vertical, the foregrip that does hipfire spread, and then, like, that's it. I don't need 15 foregrips that do ever so slightly tweaked variations of the same thing. The only reason this stuff exists is because it's easy to bloat your game. People like unlocks, so they just go, oh, we'll just give you 1 million unlocks, instead of just giving people back, like, prestiging. Prestiging is the easiest thing they could give to people, and it gets you that high of, oh, I unlocked something, yeah, I get to play. While I'm playing, I get to see it pop up and hear the game play its squealy guitar riff for a second, and you feel awesome, and then you keep going. That's it, you're done. You got that little surge of endorphins, and you're back to playing. Because otherwise, you sit there, God, I hate the MW2 system of like, oh, you wanted this foregrip? Well, now you have to take the M4 and you have to switch out the internals to make it the M16 and level that to level 16, and then if you want this sight, you gotta switch it to the SMG version with the P90 mags and level it up. And the whole time, I played the beta and I just sat there going, this is hell. Because it turned unlocks into a chore. And sometimes you can kind of get away with a little bit of a chore feeling to stuff, but you have to do it very sparingly. And this just felt like someone really didn't understand motivation for people. And it was just like, oh, they like unlocks, so just give them a ton of them. And they spaced it out. It's so weird. And I get it, it's the whole, you're kind of sharing a framework of a weapon. But man, it was horrible. So at least I'm hopeful for the new CODs, but I'm also sitting here like, I'm probably not even gonna buy them. I'm so burnt out, I'm so just tired of Call of Duty. The apathy has set in. And that, I think, is probably the most damning thing for them, is their poor decisions and all this leading to just sheer apathy, dragging players down. And admittedly, this is the time where a competitor needs to step in. This is where they need to strike and release something good. People say the finals. I don't think the finals is it. I think it's a decent shooter, but I don't think it scratches the same itch. It's one of those, it's good, it's tangentially related. If Ubisoft could get X-Defiant out, I think they'd have a chance. But, I don't know. Ooh, oh, it's a plasma pistol. And we'll look at it. Damn, that looks good, honestly. I'm gonna have to use it. I have to figure out what this is, because I think I can fuse a... Oh, let me just check. I'm here. Modify. Okay, so... it's in here somewhere. I'm just really dumb. Okay, it's under forging. Okay, so I can't add another socket. That's a little bit of a bummer. I was really hoping to be able to put a fifth socket in, because then we could ball out of control. But it still has potential. Not as much potential as I was hoping, but we still got potential. But that is all for now. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to hit the like button, it helps out the channel a lot, and if you haven't already, make sure to hit the subscribe button. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.